Conservation is a vital step towards sustainable future. Water is a finite and precious resource that sustains life on Earth, while the increasing global population and ongoing impact of climate change on weather patterns, water scarcity has become an escalating concern. Today, the webinar centers around the crucial topic of water conservation. Our esteemed speakers for the day are Major General Dr. Shripal Vishist Seva Medal, retired, Managing Director, Bunkerman Global Solutions Private Limited, Ms. Vishakha Rao, Senior Consultant Advisor, Tatva ESG Solutions Private Limited, Mr. Prantik Chakraborty, Regional Manager, Sustainability Services, TUV Renland Group. We welcome you all and are honored by your presence for the webinar. My first question goes to Major General Dr. Shripal. Sir, with your vast experience in research, kindly enlighten us on the present situation of water in India and the need for water conservation.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Bhattacharya. First of all, I'm thankful to you for inviting me to this forum. I'm having a sore throat today. Please don't mind my sore throat. So, as you rightly said, water conservation is a big challenge in India. And though India is having plenty of resources of water, but still, as the population is increasing and there is a shift of population from rural area to the urban areas, and we also have the very diverse climatic conditions in our country. So the severity of water crisis remains in India also. So as per report of a Niti Aayog, over 600 million people in India, they face extreme water crisis. And as per their estimates, more than 2 lakh people die every year because of inadequate access to the safe and potable drinking water. So this is a quite alarming fact in India. Also, one of the very important point which is uh, revealed from the same report of Niti Aayog, it says that by 2030, that is another about 5 years, India's demand will become double of the supply of potable water in India. And this is basically because of two reasons. Firstly, by increase in the population, and secondly, by shift of the population from rural area to the urban areas. So this is also quite alarming. And there is another report of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which says that per capita requirement of India for potable water is about 35 liters per person per day in urban areas. In rural areas, it is just 55 liters per day, as per their estimates. So there is a vast difference between rural requirement and urban requirement. And as there is a shift occurring because of the development in all big cities, the rural population is shifting towards the cities or urban population. So this demand will keep on increasing. And as you should know, the lifestyle of the people is changing. In villages, there is hardly any requirement of water in even in sanitation. There is vast difference in urban areas. What you can see, even in the toilets, so far there are two types of commodes in the toilet. One is for urinal, and another is normal WC. Now, WC is not meant to be a urinal. For urinal, there should be separate pot, and where water has to be conserved. It requires very less water if a person goes for urination. But whereas it goes for a long call, obviously 3 to 4 or 5 liters of water is used in every flush. But invariably, it is found in most of the, particularly your private houses, in individual houses, that even particularly the old age people like me, we are the biggest culprit. When we go to the toilet, we discharge only 50 to 100 milliliter of urine, and you flush out 5 to 7 liters of our water every time. So such habits have to be changed of the people, and we have to accept it. This change is required very much. So basically, what I feel that this per capita requirement of water will increase, and as per that report of Niti Aayog, why they say that by 2030 the requirement of water will double up within a matter of 5 years. If it is going to develop what is present today, this is one of the reasons that there is a rise in population and shift of population from rural area to urban areas, and also change in our lifestyle. Because after corona, unfortunately, we have been told you have to wash your hands even every time. And earlier, you can imagine now it has gone into our culture. Even the small child, if he goes to the wash basin, he washes his hands. Now they know that the soap has to be used, and they spend more time in washing the hands even. So the consumption of water has increased. So all these factors are there in India. Now this will keep happening. Demand will go on. Development cannot be stopped. Development has to occur in India, and also you cannot change the habit of the people overnight. So what are the solutions we have to think? So to my mind, to stop this, to conserve the water, we should have in mind some of the points which are though obvious, everybody knows about it, but let me enumerate them. One is that you have to conserve water, and you have to conserve power. If you conserve water, the power will automatically be conserved, because in urban areas water is available because of power. You have to first take the water from wherever it is coming at ground floor. If there is a 20-story building, first we have to pump the water up on top of that multi-story building, and then only it will flow. So we have to conserve water, we have to conserve power, and we have to plug the wastages, leakages in water. Most of the water is being wasted out sometimes, and overflow of tanks has to be stopped. Also, I have already told about flushing systems. They need the improvement. Even the some new systems like vacuum toilets can be thought of, which consume less water, though they may consume more power in return. But we have to find a via media where water can be conserved less. Also, we have to clean our rivers, because lot of waste goes to our industries, and water which can be used for our drinking purposes, it is not being used for drinking purposes. Like I see Yamuna River, it is having plenty of water flowing all around Delhi, but still you can't drink that water or use that even for any domestic purposes in its present form. So first we have to clean our rivers, we have to stop polluting the rivers, and also we have to stop use this river water for drinking water in urban areas. What we are doing, we are mostly depending on the groundwater. So the groundwater should be our last option. First, whatever water is flowing in our rivers, we have to use it. And there was a very good project or idea given by my guru, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, when he wrote a book, Vision 2020, long back. Then this was his dream that we should connect all our rivers in India through canals, broad canals. Because in India, most of the rivers flow from northwest to southeast. And it is possible to connect them with the canals, with waterways. And these waterways and canals can also be used for transportation. By
Yes.
waterway transportation, they can be used for tourism. I have visited some countries like Russia and Germany and others. Every city in their country has got the waterways, beautiful canals, very wide canals flowing, and they use a lot of water transport, even for amusement and for tourism in that area. So India has to think on those lines. I think our present government is doing something, thinking something, but practically action has to be taken now on this line, that we have to join all our rivers. Secondly, we have to think of circular economy. We have to recycle the water, we have to reuse the water, and we have to rethink about the water, reimagine new technology, new techniques, how we can overcome this problem of water scarcity in India. So that's all I want to say about this. I hope I have answered your question.
Definitely, sir. Very well mentioned. You have mentioned all the problems that India is facing, and even the solutions that we can look into, and especially the fact that there are 2 lakh people dying every year because of
Yeah,
no proper drinking water is a major area of concern, and also
yeah,
that our consumption will double up by 2030 of water. That is also a concern, and we have to work in a lot in this direction. Thank you for the
yeah.
valuable inputs, sir. Now, my next question goes to Madam Vishakha. Kindly enlighten us on how ESG can help in efficiently preserving and efficiently preserve, control, and manage water resources with practical, proven, innovative strategies.
Hi, Shrestha. Am I
Um,
audible?
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Hi. Thank you for having me. And Sir has highlighted all the scarcity, the challenges, and the mismanagement regarding water in India. So I won't go and reiterate them, but I wanted to focus on how industries can take meaningful action. Because while we often talk about carbon footprint or we talk about energy transition, it is indirectly water that is silently driving the economies or the industries or the communities. So no business can function without it, yet water remains one of the most mismanaged resources in the world. So this is where industries must step up, like they are among the biggest consumers as well. So they also have the resources, the technology, and the influence to change, create a large scale change. So this is where ESG and sustainability comes in. I wanted to take a little moment and explain what ESG is for everybody here. Then I will try to tailor it to water particularly. So if we simplify ESG stands for environmental social governance, which means it's a framework that helps businesses measure and improve their impact on the planet, on the people, while balancing their economic growth. Right. So, if we talk about environment, it is about how a company impacts the environment it's operating in. Maybe what are the emissions they are emitting, what is the pollutions that, or how they're affecting the biodiversity around them, and obviously the water as well. And if we talk about the social aspect, it is about how the company interacts with the society, be it their employees or be it the community or be it their customers. And then if we talk about governance, it's about how a company stays accountable and transparent to its stakeholders while growing the business ethically. So for water conservation, ESG and sustainability initiatives can help manage water more efficiently, right? To conserve water, first the companies would need to measure and they would need to manage, and they would also need to disclose their usage. So there are certain key metrics in ESG which are used for water. I wanted to just list a few for reference. One is, what is the total water that is withdrawn, right? How much water is taken from, let's say, a groundwater or rivers or the municipal sources. So there are certain smart water meters that are tracking the real time withdrawal. And one important metric is what is the total water consumption, which is what is used and what is not returned, right, even including the losses. And if we talk about one more important metric, is what is the water recycling and reuse rate, what percentage of water is being treated and what percentage of water is being reused internally. So there are systems such as zero liquid discharge systems that are operational now for many industries, which in we are making sure that there is no wastewater that is let out. Right? And another important metric is water intensity, which is the efficiency metric of how this company is operating. That how much water is required per product that is produced. And lastly, but not the least, we also have to make sure we are reporting on we are discharging and how much we are polluting. So is the wastewater we are letting out being treated before being discharged? So one example for you could be that Nestle actually publicly discloses their wastewater quality. They measure it with sensors, they detect the pollutants, and they have publicly disclosed their wastewater quality. Right. So these are the metrics that are to be tracked by businesses, which make sure that they're going beyond that vague commitment, and they are ensuring real accountability in water conservation. Now, coming to this, conservation is just the first step. What about the future, right? This is where we would need water resilience. We would need businesses to build water resilience. It would be the ability to withstand and to adapt to the climate change or the droughts or the raising demand from growing industries. So, just like climate resilience, it focuses on adapting to warming planet, right? Similarly, water resilience ensures that industries and cities can operate with a limited amount of water. So, one example I wanted to give was the semiconductor industry. All of us know it is growing rapidly because of the AI, of the automations, and all the advanced computing that is going on. So, if you know, manufacturing these chips requires ultra pure water for all the processes, for the cleaning, for the production. So without a stable supply, even global leaders like Intel, they are fearing significant risks of production and shutdowns also. There was one such incident in 2021 in Taiwan. They had one production unit which was shut down. So similarly, another sector I can tell you which is growing rapidly is the energy and the renewable sector. Even the biofuels, all of this require substantial amount of water for the processing and the cooling. So while these industries are actually sustainable sectors, they still need water availability for their success. So all of these industries that are set to grow, water conservation and resilience becomes not just the environmental responsibility but also the economic necessity. So and few other I wanted to highlight if I have time. Am I
That's
going a
sure.
little?
No,
Yeah.
that's
So
okay.
yeah, few innovative techniques or management strategies which companies have been using is one is Google's AI water optimization, which is they are predicting water demand and they are preventing the excess use in their data centers, which is their maximum consumption of water. They have reduced over 30% of water usage. And even in Tesla factories, they make sure that 80% of the water they use is recycled and reused, which is reducing their fresh water withdrawal. And another thing which I would like to elaborate at a later point is storm water or flood water diversions that are being researched and adopted in US. Like cities like Los Angeles and New York, they have stormwater capture systems to store excess rains for future use. So, coming back to the ESG factor, I don't think that ESG should just be a checklist or metrics that companies are reporting. Although I did highlight what metrics to track, but it should be something we should start measuring and then making the improvements based on our current impact. So, so the real question is again not how much water you are using or not using. It is about how you are managing, tracking, or securing it for the future. And I hope that businesses embrace more of these initiatives. And yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
Thank
So very rightly pointed out, when we talk of industry, they are also consuming a lot of water, and it is very important how they manage their water. Apart from consumption, it has to be recycled and efficiently used as well. So the various metrics help in doing that, and they also have the resources to do this. So I think this is something which has to be looked into, and water management by industry has to be taken more seriously, and ESG plays a very important role in that. So now I move to the next question, that is to Mr. Prantik Chakraborty. Jyoti. What would be the sustainable solution to effective water management in industries? Please enlighten on the same with a few examples.
Yeah, thank you, Srishta, and thank you, Dr. Paul and Viksha, to set the tone. It made me really my job easier here. So, as Viksha and Dr. Paul already mentioned, that water is one of the most important assets, resources we have in the world, and there is no doubt about it that we need to conserve and manage it. Now, the management from the industries can be done on twofold for any resource for that matter. It might be water, it might be air, it might be emission, anything. There can be twofold of the management idea. One is that it has to be a compliance requirement from the government, licensing, CPCB. It has to be asked that either you manage it or you have to shut down your plant, or it has to be the market driven. If you manage, you can get an extra premium over your product. If we can use both these instruments simultaneously, the management will get much easier. For example, let us look into our own Indian textile hub, one of the biggest in the world, that is the Tirupur. They started the management of water from very early. There were two key drivers at play here. First, the Tamil Nadu government and the local government started incentivizing them to use water more diligently. So they went for the zero liquid discharge certification at a very early stage, and now they are 95% of total usage of water. They're actually recycling it again. That is there, and then they got the economic benefit also from the market, that their product become more green. So the big brands, H&M, Zara, all of them, because everyone across the sector, across the spectra, now have to report their procurement strategies on their sustainability report annually, all the brands. And with the coming up of CSRD, etc., CS triple D, it becomes more and more pressing point for the brand. So that now the brand would really look for to procure their product from the areas like Tirupur, who are already sustainable in nature, rather than areas or the producers who are not really that sustainable yet. So therefore, this is one very important example to me how these two drivers, both government compliance as well as the market, can help a sector to actually take that leap. Now, it is true that textile sector were the first ones, rather they had the first mover advantage in terms of water management for obvious reasons, because textile sector is one who uses water very intensively, both for the fabric and for the dyeing process. And therefore, they also have another very important standard setup for their products, that is called the ZDHC. So let me just deal a little deep into that. ZDHC is basically stands for zero discharge of hazardous chemical. So what happens when this chemical processing of textile happens? The wastewater has a lot of chemical into it, and those chemical in previous times used to be simply discharged into the clear stream of water, which pollutes the whole source of the water. And the industry itself came together and say we have to take a strong stand against it. And so therefore they set their own standard. ZDHC is one standard which was set by the industry. No government asked them to set it, no market asked them to set it. They set their own standard and say we will take a stand, and they started this standard. So ZDHC, now it is the fourth edition of ZDHC standard going on. They now have the wastewater standard, they have the chemical MSDS, what we call the safety data sheet of all the restricted substance list they have. So they check every month what is the amount of restricted substances you are using in your plant, in your manufacturing unit, and how much are you letting it go out, and how much are you actually refining it and purifying your water, what is your wastewater standard. They do a thorough check every month. This is being done, and it's a huge reform in the industry which is done by the industry itself. So this kind of initiatives has to be taken in order to manage the water more. So now if I quickly summarize, then we see there are three pillars now for the water management. One is the compliance, one is the market, and then there is one compliance, that is the industry. Now people often come back to me and ask, like, why would any industry take this leap? Because a textile industry might have taken the leap because there were big names and they don't wanted to get into a sculf with different stakeholders. The Rana Plaza incident happened in Bangladesh, so all these things happened for textile. For other industry, there is no need for that. So let me tell you, people might have heard of this one company called Patagonia. They became one of the leader in sustainability. And when Patagonia happened, the whole industry wanted to become sustainable. Why? Because being sustainable is a competitive edge for them now. And that's why for other industries also, if there is one player who becomes sustainable, the whole industry, whole supply chain also wants to replicate themselves. And we often see the risk of not being sustainable. For example, we have seen the risk of Tuticorin, what happened to Vedanta, and such a risk to their, not only to manufacturing plant got shut down, etc., legal risk, etc., was also there, but it was a huge dent on their image also. So the reputation risk is much larger, which actually reflect into their bottom line. And I believe one thing, any business, and this is by the training as a management student, we are being taught that if anything reflect on the bottom line, that should be the one parameter as a manager you have to take into account. So even if it is the sustainability, when starts reflecting into your bottom line, reflecting into your balance sheet, you have to take initiatives to rectify that. And that is how now we see lots of industries, not just textile. So textile is one only example, a very good example. There are other industries, even electrical, as Viksha mentioned, electrical and electronic industries. They are now looking into the water standards. And there are other industries also. For example, energy industries are totally looking into the water standard. Before, the thermal power plant used to simply discharge the water after cooling. So when we say after cooling, that cooling water is also of the temperature of more than almost 80-90 degrees Celsius. So that is not to be discharged into the water. That harms the whole aquatic ecosystem.
Yes.
But still it needs to be discharged. But now the STPs are at plant, the cooling system for the water are at plant, the dry cooling system has been adopted in the industries. So we see a lot of changes coming up. However, we also have to admit that those changes probably are not enough. We have to go a long way forward, because when we see the numbers like in Africa, how many people are being displaced due to the water scarcity, or even in India, I was shocked to know that there is. I'll just take one. I'm very much happy to actually take this name of one of the organization who are working in the area of Ladakh. So the organization is called the Acre of Ice. So what is happening in Ladakh, there were small villages in the patches of mountain, and their only water source during the summer or winter used to be those what we call the icebergs around the village. And now due to the change of climate, those icebergs has been melted. So now they don't have any water in the villages. Hundreds of villages has been displaced to the city areas, the urban areas. And that creates two problems. One is there is a sudden density of population has increased in the urban areas, which create further water stress in the urban population. And then there were areas which got completely deserted. So this simultaneous desertification and water stress on the urban areas is causing havoc problem. I live in Bangalore for that matter. I see the water problem of Bangalore every year, and I really do not. So I'm not blaming anyone. The government is doing what the government can. The communities are coming up. There are few communities in Bangalore who actually are trying to save almost 1 million liters of water in a year. In a month. Like Shobha apartments, Shobha housing complexes, they're trying to do that. But it is somehow is not enough. So we all have to come up together. As Sir mentioned, it is also us. We have to change our practices. Huh? Just like slowly we came into a point when we go out of the room, we switch off the light. We also have to come to a point when we do not waste water anymore. That is one. The industry has to take its own course. There are, so for example, if I take another good example of the industry, the leather industry, they also used to have a huge problem
Yes.
with water. The leather working group, they came up very strongly on the water standards, and now they are actually working for it, working positively on it. And there are other industries also who are coming up and trying to help, but they also have to come a lot more, and the
Yes.
government has to be a little more proactive on that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess
So
that, yeah, that
yeah,
answers the
thank you for
question.
enlightening us on these sustainable methods taken by the industries, and especially it was good to know that it was not when we talk of textile industry, you gave the example how they themselves had set their standards, and it was not the government or any stakeholder pressurizing them to take the standards. So I think everyone has to unanimously think about, all sectors, all stakeholders have to think about sustainable ways of preserving water, and water which is a resource is now becoming an asset slowly, because of the kind of climatic changes that is happening and the challenges we are facing. So now I move on to the next question, which is to Dr. Shripal. So here, sir, with your vast background of research and naval history, please enlighten us that how water desalination is the answer to water crisis in the area in the near future.
Yeah, yeah, Srishta. Though I agree with you, yes, desalination of water is one of the solution. It is an option available to us, particularly in coastal areas. But I will tell you my experience in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. I have been there in Port Blair, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So there is water everywhere. All around is the sea, and on top of that, there is a very heavy downpour. It rains heavily, profusely from the sky also, but still there is a scarcity of water, and particularly drinking water. There we call it sweet water. The water is not sweet by taste, but any water which is non-saline, that is called sweet water there. So when I was posted there for a good about 2.5 years, the only source of water was from one of the dam called Choldhari Dam. So during rains, the rainwater gets collected there in that dam, and that from that dam, the water, drinking water, is being supplied to all over the area in those islands, even particularly Port Blair and islands which are close by. There were hardly any desalination plants except one or two hotels, which were 3 star that time. Now they must have become 5 star hotels. Only they could afford having a desalination plant, because desalination is a very cumbersome and still costly process, and a high energy consuming process. So because of this advantage, it is not a very favorable procedure to go for desalination. But however, when there is no other option available, we have to adopt. And that's why slowly and slowly, earlier days, only one or two hotels used to go for desalination plants. But now even Army and Navy and even the civil administration in that area, they are now thinking to adopt this desalination. And with some improvement in technology, I think the cost will also likely to come down, or we can afford
Yes.
that cost. So this is getting popularized slowly and slowly. But there is one more reason to it, because when you desalinize the water, you take out the potable water out of this, the concentrated brine still remains there. And the disposal of that causes another problem of environment degradation. We have to pump it back
Okay.
to the sea. And the
Okay.
seawater salination
Becomes
concentration
more
goes
silly.
further up, and it
Yeah.
causes another problem of ecosystem in that area.
Yes.
So because of this, I will only like to say that this is an option available, desalinization. Technically, it is feasible. It is can be made affordable also, but it should be the last option in those areas. The effort should be in those areas to go for rainwater harvesting. Now we are switching over. Even the population in civil cantonment area, navy accommodation, we are switching over to rainwater harvesting because there is a lot of rains in that area, and
Yes.
whatever wherever the terrain permits, having a lake or a dam, they are being developed now. Even in Nicobar Islands, Nicobar is a flat area. There were few wells, natural wells, where sweet water was available. So-called sweet water means potable water.
Okay.
It was very surprising. Just about 50 to 100 meters away is the sea shore, but God has made those wells in such a way that the water in that well is still potable. It is not saline water. It's
Okay.
still sweet water. So people are surviving there, and they know how to conserve water, because once it is not available and you cannot move out of that island, the next place, if you want to have water from those islands, is either Calcutta or Chennai. There is no other
Okay.
place in India close by from where they can fetch water. So everything
Okay.
to those islands used to go by ship. Even all vegetable, fruits, etc. There are only two places of supply. Either it goes from Chennai or it goes from Calcutta to,
Okay.
and there are more than 100 islands in that area, Andaman Nicobar Islands. So I will only say saline water is an option, but it is the last option in those areas.
Okay. So very rightly said. So saline water is still, a challenge. Desalinization. So and the technology, we don't know how much it will improve in the near future, and what and it can be become a one of the major options as well. We do not know, but yes, if we pump back the residue from desalinization into the sea, then it will definitely cause more environmental problems. So now, talking about, very rightly said, rainwater harvesting is a better option. And now, talking about this, I would like to ask Madam Vishaka, should rainwater harvesting in industry and offices, as well as large housing societies, be made mandatory?
Uh, yeah, Shrestha. Sorry, I'd like to once correct her. My name is spelled Viksha. Sorry.
Diksha. Oh, sorry.
Diksha. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay, but I'm just mentioning it
Yeah.
because, yeah, I live in Vishakhapatnam, so it's okay
Okay.
that you're calling me Vishakhapatnam, but just
Okay.
trying to, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sir actually rightly mentioned that rainwater harvesting is being adopted. So I think Sir has already told why it's important in which the regions where the rainwater is available. So that's what I wanted to highlight. Like if we look at the water shortages we are observing in, maybe let's say, cities or industries or even our homes, it the problem is that it's not that it doesn't rain, it's just that we don't know how to manage it, right? So if we think every year during this monsoon season and due to climate change in any season now, I think we have Indian cities that are flooding, right? And just a few months later, the same cities will have severe water shortages. So the cycle keeps repeating because we allow the rainwater to drain away instead of capturing and reusing it. So if you ask me if rainwater harvesting should be mandatory for industries or offices or large housing, I would answer. The answer is yes, a simple yes. But the real question is, how do we implement the mandate, right? Because it might work differently in different regions and different sectors across industries. So I also want to put forth that just rainwater harvesting alone isn't enough as well. So in cities like Chennai and Bangalore, rainwater harvesting is already mandatory, and it has also helped as well. So, but the bigger challenge is the urban flooding that happens, and also the groundwater depletion that is happening. right? So that's why the conversation also needs to be in the line that we should include how to use this stormwater or how to use this flood water and develop the diversion strategies. So like I mentioned earlier, in the US is a well researched area, that is in Los Angeles they have a stormwater capture program which collects and diverts rainwater into underground storage, which is ensuring that it doesn't flood the streets and instead it is replenishing the local water sources. And also in New York, they have permeable pavements and they also have rain gardens. So these are to absorb the excess water naturally and to reduce the urban flooding that is happening and to increase the water availability, groundwater availability. So, what this actually means for Indian businesses or in India. So a blanket rule forcing every industry or office to install rainwater harvesting may not be a practical solution. Instead, maybe a regional and sector-wise approach would make sense. So for industries, maybe regulations to require an on-site management, right, to reuse the rainwater for cooling or processes or for non-drinking purposes. Maybe that can be done. And also for housing societies and urban areas especially, incentives could be provided for green infrastructure. Some of those are like there are recharge walls, recharge wells, there are rain gardens, and there are also permeable payments like I mentioned to naturally replenish the water table of that area. So instead of a one size fits all mandate, we need to have an adoptable approach. So wherever rainwater harvesting is possible, we need to mandate that or use that, and maybe go beyond collecting just the rainwater as well. Yeah. So maybe the real solution lies in integrating large scale water management solutions.
Yeah, true. So, rainwater harvesting is one answer, and very rightly said that we cannot have one rule for everyone. It has to be based on region-wise, regional basis, and as per the storm water should be also preserved and it should be utilized. Very beautifully mentioned. So now, talking about rainwater, we now move on to grey water. So my next question to Mr. Prantik is, please enlighten us on the scope of grey water recycling in industry as well as domestic sphere.
Yeah, thank you, Srishta. Now, the grey water recycling is a very interesting concept already, and we already talked about how circular economy is required. There are two types of wastewater. One is grey, one is the black. Black is the water it typically comes from the with the biohazards, etc. And we really don't cannot use it for a very utility purposes, and therefore we probably will not consider it as an economically viable option to recycle black water. But for the grey water recycling, this is certainly a way forward. And what I again mentioned, the textile industry, on an industrial scale, the grey water recycling is being done, and using the ETPs and STPs, it is already being done. Even as a community level, this is being done in the different housing communities nowadays. Again, in Bangalore, they are the kind of at the forefront because of the necessity, sheer necessity. There is no innovation or creativity involved. It is just because they have to. Otherwise, next year they won't have any water, and Bangalore realized that, and that's why they are doing it. But then the grey water, so the scope of grey water recycling is enormous. It can be done from a very small scale using some plants also, like there are a few types of plants which can help to reduce the content of the grey water which is coming from the domestic purposes, domestic use, especially from the kitchen wastewater, that can be reused for non-potable purposes, for planting, for cleaning, for washing. All these things can be done. And one example for that is the Akshaya Patra Foundation. It is headquartered in Bangalore, and basically it is a non-profit organization who is basically at the forefront of serving meal to the children. and working in the area of that, they have large kitchens around India, 40 to 50 large kitchens. And whatever wastewater is coming out from the kitchen, they are using it, they are reusing it. They are treating the gray water and reusing it for non-potable purposes like cleaning the utensils, for the gardening purposes, etc. So this kind of usage can be possible. However, we also have to understand that when we say that gray water recycling, there are three ideas of recycling. One is the reusing, one is the downcycling, and one is the upcycling. Now, upcycling is certainly when the value gets higher than what it was previously. For example, if I had a very old gold ornament, because of the sheer price of the gold, now the gold's value is higher, so I can melt it and make it a even costlier something. That is upcycling, an example. Maybe not a very good example, I'm not a jewelry background. A downcycling is what is happening in case of gray water. The water in its pure form had a particular value attached to it, and when it becomes gray water, the value is zero. We are trying to retrieve some value out of it, so we cannot expect the exact same value when it was a pure form, it was in its pure form.
Yes.
And that would be an example of reusing, which is not possible at this moment. So that on that technological breakthrough, we do not have it till now. Not only technological, however, we have to also understand that there are some stigma associated with gray water recycling as well. uh, uh, on domestic level, on industrial level, even the industry also does not want to take chances, because sometimes there are sophisticated machineries and they really don't want to expose themselves to the risk of having some kind of corrosion, etc., in the sophisticated machinery just by using the treated gray water. So these problems are have to be dealt into a little more carefully. The We have to always try to innovate our STP solutions. We have to go from mechanical purification to biomembrane based purification kind of a system, chemical and mechanical purification to biomembrane based, so that we have better output as a water. But yes, gray water treatment is one way India as a country has to take it very seriously, and the industry, specifically the industries who are water intensive, their water footprint is very high. They have to take it very seriously. Yeah.
Very rightly said. So, gray water recycling is something which we have to take seriously, and we have to think of alternate use of water, where apart from drinking water has to be completely pure. But then there are many uses of water where we do not need very pure water, like for gardening or for washing of utensils and clothes, and even for flushing down the toilets. Also, we don't need pure water. So we can have the gray water recycling done, and that water can be used there. So very rightly pointed out, and industry should look into it also, as they are they consume. They are very many industries are water intensive, and they do consume a lot of water. So now my next question goes to Dr. Shripal. Here, the Honda company is aiming at zero water intake and wastage by its manufacturing plants by 2050. So, can the same model be applied in Indian industries as well?
Uh, yes, I think Mr. Prantik and Viksha have already covered most of the points because they are the expert in industries. So I have read this Honda company uh, thing just recently, and what I came to know is that they are using the similar procedures what Viksha and Prantik have already said about industries, that you can conserve the water basically. There cannot be any zero water process, let me tell you, where water is being used in any industrial processing. So zero water processing is just not possible. However, you can economize on use of water. You can use less and less water. The wastage should be stopped, and water recycling and reusing is the only option. That's what they must be doing. Basically, again, it comes to the same parameters, the steps. that they are having the rainwater harvesting also. They are promoting. Second thing, one very good thing Honda has adopted, that they are saying that we are not using our exclusive sources in our industries. We are using the common sources of water which are available to the rest of the public also in that area. Wherever their factory is, wherever their plant is located, they are taking the water from the common source, which is also available to other users. And about ESG also, Viksha has already said that they are also following the ESG considerations. Further, even industries, because I have got a few plants in industrial area Baddi in Himachal Pradesh. So there also the government has put restrictions on almost on all industries, that every industry has to go for rainwater harvesting. In fact, in my factory, I've got 3 factories there. None of them had rainwater harvesting in initial plan when we constructed the factories. But later on, the pollution control department and other industrial department, they forced it almost on all industrialists that you have to go for rainwater harvesting. And also, they have to go for ETPs, effluent treatment plant. Whatever wastage, even if you are washing the utensils in your factory, so you have to treat that water, and then only it has to be then discharged to the normal sewage system of the industrial area. Or now even Baddi, they have even assigned it to a particular company. They all collect this affluent from individual industries. Those who are not able to have ETPs installed in their factory premises, those small factory owners, what they do, they collect the water after usage which at one place, and the vehicle from one of the industry comes to them, they collect it and they take it to the effluent treatment plant, which is located at a central place in area. So these provisions, I think industries are already observing in certain areas. And what I read about a Honda company, I think they have done a wonderful work. But again, they are only working on these things, that rainwater harvesting, reduce fresh water intake by adopting recycling and water efficient processes. Now, what are these water efficient processes? It is a matter of detail to go into that. Because everybody must be trying to use water efficient processes. Nobody wants to waste water unnecessarily. But adoption of these things must be paying them the dividend. And periodic checks and audits, these are must in the organization. These are forming part of ESG also. That if any industry, you may have a good plan, but you have to ensure that this plan is implemented. So the periodic checks have to be enforced. The audit has to be there. Even the term water audit has to be done, or wastage audit has to be done, but how they are utilizing, where it is going. And they have to comply with the environmental regulations. Even the government has laid very good elaborative regulations. Like I have been recently dealing with oil industries of Indian Oil Corporation Limited in Assam. I have visited some of them. The government had made very good regulations on them to control the pollution. Even this water is being used in oil industry also. They take out several types of oil from the crude oil, but ultimately they have to wash it with the water.
Water.
And that water comes, whether both types of water, black and gray, both come from there, and they have to treat it again and reuse it. So this is a very good task there. And the last point I would like to mention, the awareness and education and training about this water conservation or pollution or environmental conservation is must, and it will go a long way if we educate the public, if we educate our workers, if we everybody is educated, but awareness is not there to that extent what is needs to be done. So this is a very, very important aspect where I would like to highlight that the government has issued instructions, quite elaborate instructions have been issued, guidelines have been issued, but public and workers have to be made aware of those rules and regulations, and they have to adopt it. And administration has to ensure the periodic audit of these things. Quality assurance has to be done. And I think this way they will be able to achieve the desired targets, whatever they say. And ultimately, it boils down to the same circular economy. You have to reuse,
Yeah.
you have to redesign, you have to recycle, and you have to reimagine, rethink what we are doing. And by reimagining, rethinking, we may have to find some new inventions and alternatives day by day as the um, time is passing on. The world is changing, we are changing, our habits are changing. So we have to change and we have to renew and revise all our regulations and education awareness. I will again say these are the key points which are must in any organization. So that's
True.
all I
Very
have to
true.
say about this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rightly said, sir. Education and awareness is very much required, and along with that, we have to keep on reinventing, redesigning. We have to keep on rethinking on various methods of preservation of water and recycling of water. And yes, as zero water intake, I mean, is very tough, but then we can aspire towards it and we can work towards it. So now my next question goes to Madam Viksha. What initiatives should be taken by government to bring strict ESG compliance when it comes to water conservation?
So, yeah, thank you, Shrestha. And that's a great question. A lot of industries and businesses, right, are adopting sustainable practices, ESG practices. But currently, it's either certain stakeholder group driven, or maybe it's a voluntary action by certain companies. But governments do need to step in, and not just with regulations, but it needs to be a mix of different things. Maybe needs to be a mix of mandates, maybe incentives also, and they also have to help in the infrastructure development, right, to ensure that this compliance is effectively executed. Now, I wanted to break down this into three key areas. The first step towards stricter compliance can be the transparency, right? Many businesses use massive amounts of water, but without clear reporting standards, it's difficult to track the actual impact of which industry or which company, right? So maybe the water reporting can be made mandatory for water intensive industries, at least to begin with, like how we currently have carbon emissions being tracked for energy intensive industries, right? So it's being phased out for certain industries in the beginning, and then later we come on to all industries. And similarly, we can adopt, there are global frameworks, although they are voluntary frameworks, CDP has a water disclosure questionnaire, right? So you can go through that questionnaire, and you can also look at GRI based reporting. They also have water metrics to report to. And also maybe another idea could be having dashboards, right? Now that's a thing for every industry, like live dashboards of data, right? So maybe have a water risk dashboard. That could make it visible and accessible, so it will give certain accountability factor, right? And the second point I would like to highlight is maybe industry specific regulations rather than one size fits all. So, for example, I wanted to tell that China actually has this zero liquid discharge policy for textile and chemical industries across all the regions. So, like that, maybe because like sir mentioned earlier, dyeing and processing the fabrics would be a vast amount of wastewater, which is hazardous also. So now the treatments are mandated, and there is a certain closed loop recycling that has to happen. So that is the second area governments can enforce. And maybe the third area could be incentivizing water conservation and recycling, maybe offering tax rebates or subsidies for all the processes that these people are adopting, and green infrastructure funding, and additionally maybe public private partnership wherein they partner with corporations to create large scale water conservation projects. There is one example of in Singapore. They have a water efficiency fund, Singapore's water efficiency fund, which is helping industries invest in water saving technologies. So they co-fund up to 50% of the project costs, right? So those kind of adaptations can be brought. And to conclude, it's I don't want to go into the fines and those regulations, because those will happen, that will come into play. But these are the ones I wanted to highlight, the three areas. And maybe creating a system where the industries are accountable, they're supported, and they're incentivized. They could be then that could be helpful for everybody. So I also wanted to conclude by saying that there's a book, right, which is written by Stephen Solomon. It's called Water, the Epic Struggle for Wealth, Power and Civilization. So there is a quote from that book, which is, water is the foundation of civilizations, and throughout history those who have controlled it have prospered.
Yes.
So I would like to
Really
leave with
rightly
that.
said.
And water has
Yeah.
always been the key to prosperity. So let's all be very responsible towards using it and mindful.
Yes. True, water has always led to prosperity, and those who have controlled water have ruled many civilizations. So, yes, we have to find new ways of preserving water. We have to find new technologies of recycling water, and along with that, definitely, government has to bring up about ESG compliance, and that should be tailor made as per the requirements of various different industries. So, very rightly said and very beautifully summed up all the points. So, now I would like to move towards the other point, that is of river water purification. So, my next question goes to Mr. Prantik. What steps should be taken in river water purification and conservation?
Yeah, thank you, Srishta. So for the river water, specifically river water purification, we already have few schemes from the different government. The most shout after one is the Namami Gange scheme from the central government. There are also few other schemes, both working in northern India and southern India. But it is clear that the river water purification is not only government's responsibility. Unfortunately, it has been seen all the time that it is the government has to do. So we continue to pollute the river, and the government continue to clean the water, and the cycle goes on like that. Instead, if we make it more of a corporate or community driven approach, like what I believe in Odisha, there has been such initiatives being taken for Baitarani River Basin, that where the community came together and tried to actually clean different tributaries of the river. They have rejuvenated river. Or even in Rajasthan, they tried to rejuvenate the old lakes, where they actually started doing agriculture cultivation using those waters. So similar community driven projects should be given more importance rather than just government. This is one part of the story. The other part comes to what Viksha also mentioned, that for the large project, I believe for the execution of the large project, the most efficient method is the public private partnership, the PPP model. Only using that model, I believe, we can efficiently build, operate, and then probably, if required, transfer to the third party to take it forward. So if we can get into such innovative approaches, then only it is possible to tackle the river water issues. Because currently I mean, make no mistake, there is a limited amount of underground water we have, and we are pumping out the underground water at the rate which is much higher than the replenishment rate. So sooner or later we will be out of underground water, and these river waters which are flowing around the country, we can use it for transport, as Dr. Pal mentioned, by quoting the great Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Also, we can use it for cultivation purposes. We haven't touched upon really the issue of irrigation, but these river waters can be actually the instrument to reduce groundwater dependency for irrigation. And so therefore there is enormous scope for river water. However, government is the custodian. Certainly the government is the custodian of river, but is not the only sole responsible for river water purification. So we all have to come together, both community and the industry, in order to take it forward, and then only we can really own it up. Yes.
Very rightly said. So it's not only government's responsibility, even even the communities and people should come together and work towards it, and be more responsible towards the water that is there, and use it as a resource which is of vital importance. So now my next question is to all the panel members, and it is related to public-private partnership. So what kind of public-private partnership is needed in water, or for what in India for water conservation? So, any panel member, if you feel, please give in your thoughts and views. So we can
Now,
start with
since,
the yes.
Yeah, since we are on water, I will not like to comment because there are other two experts on public-private partnership. But I want to convey one very important point to you, which you may not be aware of, that water is very, very precious item for us. And water can also be used as a weapon. You will be surprised to know this sentence. Now, if you see our India map, we have got rivers on western front flowing from north to south, and we also have a number of rivers on the eastern fronts flowing from north to south. On east side, the water goes from India to Pakistan. On the eastern side, the rivers flow from China to down to India. And there are some dams already constructed, some are under construction, and some will be constructed in future. So this is a strategic and defense asset. The water being collected in those dams and then flown down below. And whosoever controls this water, he will be having a power in his hand. Because in case of war, you can inundate that area down below.
Yes.
By
True.
inundating, by releasing water from those dams, all the area can be inundated at your will, and it will affect the war scenario. Similarly, you can cause even drought in a country. Like now, you must have heard recently, Pakistan was crying that they need more water, and our government was not giving them water from some of the rivers. I don't want to comment on them, but this is a big weapon. So water, we should not only think of the rivers and drinking water, or even for our domestic use. It is a strategic weapon. It is a defense weapon in hands of all countries, and they can use it either way. So this point I want to just highlight for your information. Now about private partnership, I think Viksha and Mr. Prantik can comment how to go about it, public-private partnership in industries.
I think we've mostly covered that topic, Shrestha, right? But still, maybe
Yeah.
we can add, right? There could be certain infrastructure projects that can be developed if we are talking about certain groundwater recharge projects that can be taken up, or maybe a lake rejuvenation projects that can be taken up, or even the industrial wastewater recycling. So there has to be a certain maybe a synergy between the public and private organizations to achieve that kind of management we require going forward. So that is like those areas. Maybe also in the sustainable agriculture also we can think of innovative projects that can be worked on, research projects can be funded. Yeah.
Yes,
So that
definitely.
areas can be, yeah.
Definitely. And Mr. Prantik, do you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, so as Viksha mentioned, most of the points are already added and mentioned. I would just add one more point maybe at the end, that there is no getaway from the fact that majority of the innovations are now at the hand of different private partners, private entities, and they are also, by the virtue of the designing of the organization and less resilience and more agility, they are also very fast to derive and discover new innovations for any matter, not only for the water conservation, for across the spectrum. That is the case. Now, if as a government, as a public body, we do not partner with such people, such partners who have the innovation, who have the technological know-hows at hand, then there is the task will be unnecessarily more difficult. And therefore it is very important for the government, for the public entities to partner with the private entities. However, I also like to mention it very categorically that the oversight has to be with the public entity, the government, because the private entity comes with several other star marks, hashtags, and footnotes.
True.
So that the oversight has to be with the government. Yes, and I like to just mention one case, old case of environmental law. That was the case is basically called it's called the Government of India versus the Kamal Nath case of 1998, where the famous public trust principle has been given by the Supreme Court, where they said that all these rivers and all these natural resources are basically comes under the public trust, and although the private entities can use them, but they have no right to pollute them or no right to exploit them, and it is the duty of the government to take care of that. So even in the PPP model, this should be taken very
Yes.
seriously into account. Yes.
True. So definitely in the PPP model, every stakeholder has its own role to play. So now we have one question from the audience: How to prevent water evaporation in open rainwater harvesting? So can would anyone like to take up this question? How to prevent water evaporation in open rainwater harvesting?
Okay. So it also depends on the type of harvesting we are doing, right? One could be if we are harvesting in the actual natural water bodies. I think maybe adding certain aquatic plants more, that could reduce the water loss. Or if it's a storage unit, maybe going for an underground storage unit that could help reduce the evaporation. And yeah, I think maybe just covering. Additionally, I
Yeah.
think if it's
Especially
an
when
open,
it's open rainwater harvesting, I had come across one example where they had floating solar over the rainwater. So what happens is the evaporation from the surface of the water does not take place because there's solar
right.
panels over there.
Right,
So
yeah.
these kind of technologies can be taken into consideration. So now with
But
this we come to the
yeah, Shrestha, the maintenance problem comes for the solar thing,
yes.
not the
Yeah.
water. I think the trade-off is a little too bad for the solar there. So yeah,
Yeah. There might be. So, but then that is also one option. So,
definitely,
and
definitely, yeah.
yeah. So now there's another question. So it is, um, how does Bungro check dam technology help in water conservation, and what makes it different from traditional water harvesting methods?
Okay.
So I think we do not have a dam expert, but anyone. So we can post this question. We can keep save this question for a dam expert whom we can have in the next session. So
Yeah.
so here
Actually,
again, what are some
maybe
of
that could be sent across on LinkedIn. We can have other,
yes we can
we can
yeah.
have other people commenting on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have another discussion coming up where we would be having a few dam experts, so we can ask the same question to them. So, right. So, with this, we come to the end of the webinar, and it was an enriched discussion on water conservation, water harvesting, and as well as water recycling, what the industry has been doing. And I'm highly thankful to all the panel members and the great inputs that they have given, especially the valuable time they gave us. I'm really thankful for that, and I thank all the panel members. Thank you for the wonderful discussion on water conservation, a norm for tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
yeah,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Keep hosting these meaningful sessions and discussions.
Sure, sure. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.